Hi.
Hey everybody! Hey,
Hi.
how are you doing? Dr. Gail, Nancy Jean. Welcome Nancy Jean for being on the channel, and welcome everybody. And welcome my old subscribers and my new subscribers. And I think Nancy, you also have new ones and old ones too. I know you have old ones. You got some new
Yeah.
subscribers also.
Yes, I've been getting people are out looking around again, so it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
if
and
you
hey Valerie. Hey Valerie. Hey Miss Annie. Oh, hey Susie. How are y'all doing? I'm
and
glad y'all are here.
if you haven't gone over and visited the garden, please come over and visit.
Yeah, Nancy Jean's Garden.
Mm-hmm.
Go look at it. She's full of information. Amazing information, more than we could even fathom of even in our little teacup. She has it in spades information. So first we're going to start off with who is Nancy Jean? And it's the series I'm doing, trying to meet the people who are on the YouTube channels, knowing a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
about them. And oh, hey Susie, you're subscribed. Good. And so first thing, and we're going to ask questions first, and then later on we will be taking questions. So just hold your questions right now. Hey, Lauren. And first, Nancy, you ready?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. First, we want to ask you, where were you born?
I was born in Illinois. I was born just south of Chicago, in the first county south of there. So as a kid, I spent a lot of time going into Chicago and seeing a big city, but I lived out in the county seat of at that time was a very agricultural county, but it had some heavy industry. And I went to school with a lot of kids whose parents were part of the diaspora after World War II. So I was born in '49, and so it there was everybody was in my hometown, and uh, and most my family, although my parents were also immigrants, they came from Canada. Most of the families I grew up around, uh, they spoke two languages in their home because everyone, a lot of them had little old grandma stuck in the corner that had been brought out of Europe, and they were, taking care of them. So it was a very interesting place to grow up. I learned to like Greek food and all the different sorts of foods you can imagine, and the rabbi that was of the temple was on the other side of the block I lived on, and I used to go over and jump his fence and sit and talk to him. So I had a real interesting mix of people that I grew up around.
Well, that's great to grow up around that. Mine was very normal, normal people. Nothing, no immigrants or anything. So I wasn't exposed to that, but that'd be a great exposure to learn.
Well, it was good for me because I was born, my father was a practicing physician, and I was born into a lot of privilege. I mean, it's just flat out was. It's just
Right.
what it was. And I didn't realize it because, everybody around me kind of knew who my family was, and they kind of sometimes left me alone, sometimes didn't. But um, I remember when I went to college and they were talking about what we did in the summer. And I used to go to summer camp and all that stuff too. But I was talking about, well, I was out at the country club, and they would all go, "Ooh, the country club," and yada da. And I was like, really?
That's how
I
I did too. When somebody was part of the country club, I'd be going, "Woo, country club!" I,
yeah, well,
I did the same.
and that if you grew up around that and you grew up in the middle of that, I don't know too many people who said, "I won't go to the country club," you know,
Mhm.
or learn to swim and stuff.
Right.
Actually, go for it. One of the spaces in my garden is a country club thing. My father was going to teach me how to golf, and it's a long story, but anyway, he just said go for it, and I hit the ball because I was really short and I couldn't see where the pin was, and it's the last time I golfed, and I either came really close to a hole in one or I made a hole in one. I can't really remember because I was a little bitty kid, but I remember the last thing they said is, "Oh, it doesn't matter if you can see the pin or not, go for it." So that's what it means in my garden. If you see go for it, it means doesn't matter if you can really see the final goal, go for it.
Let me to speak to some other people here. I see Lauren. Hi, Lauren. How Alice? How Chris? Marge. Carmonsi, Mesquite, Sunny Intuition, And T. Jones, welcome. Welcome, guys. Welcome
Hi,
here.
everybody.
We're getting to know Nancy Jean, and I'm getting ready to start my next question. And what states have you lived in the U.S.?
Long-term Illinois and Texas. I've visited California and some other states. I've went and lived in. Actually lived in New York City for 6 weeks when I went to work for American Airlines, and I lived in the city. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed Manhattan, but I am I'm a Taurus, and you plant my butt somewhere, man, and I'm not moving. I don't like to move.
Okay. All right. Well, the next question: what places have you lived out of the country or
Uh,
visited out of the country?
okay, when I was 17, I toured Europe with a choir of kids from all over the U.S. So I saw the Netherlands, England, France, Germany, Switzerland, Italy. Um, I think we spend most of our time in the Netherlands and in Germany, but it was really cool because we were going to all these international music festivals. So we'd go and we'd sing at the festivals, and we'd meet the kids from all over the rest of the world. It was really interesting. And
Oh,
then I wanted to go to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts, and they were willing to let me do an audition. But my parents said, you have to do a year at an American school first. And then once I got to an American school, they said, we're never going to let you go to England. So that was the end of that. So, but I married an Englishman, and Bill and I spent a month in England going around showing off Patrick, our, our son. And at the time, Bill was 73 with his 4-year-old son in tow. So that was we were sort of an interesting thing. And I loved England. England is like, I know I lived there before. And when Bill grew up in London, and when we were in England with Patrick, he'd say, well, we need to go down we're going down to the Thames because we're going to catch a tour boat to take a boat down the Thames. And I said, we're going the wrong way. And he said, I grew up in this city. I know where I'm going. And we got to a certain point, and I pointed out to a map that was like a bus route map. And I said, the river's that way. So we turned around and went back, found the river. And he said, how do you know where you are? But I found that when I was a teenager and I was there, I could get around without a map. And everybody was like, how do you know where we're going? And I said, well, I just go. So I know I lived there a long time ago.
yeah, not memory.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. Okay, well, let me speak to, let's see, hi, Melissa. How's Zeta? How fine in Phoenix? And how are y'all doing today? I'm glad y'all are here talking to Nancy Jean. And
Mm-hmm.
next thing I'm going to ask you is about your children and pets.
Okay. I have 3 children, and I have a son who's 45 and a daughter who's about to turn 43, and the baby is 31. I 2 different fathers, but and they're all doing really well. One of my kids is kind of going through a rough time, the oldest one, but they're good kids, and I have no complaints about them. I have a cat named Dublin, and when we got Dublin, my daughter had a dog named London, and she named the cat because as a kitten, she would hide and she'd jump out at the dog and startle her. So Casey said that cat was going to be named Dublin after Irish terrorists. And I said, that's not very nice. That's my lineage. I'm almost completely Irish.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Mm-hmm.
My lineage is pretty much Scottish. Um,
Yes.
okay, so the next question: what careers have you had?
Oh,
Yeah,
geez.
you've had a lot. I know you've been everywhere, done everything, but
Yeah, I was.
we've always settled in on this one.
I got my degree from college in broadcast film. I taught filmmaking from the perspective of how students should learn how to view images and how to work with images. And I still think I wish in some ways I hung closer to that job, because I really think that's what's wrong now. People don't know how to view the images that are being fed to them. But anyway, I went from that. Then I worked for public broadcasting. And when I was at public broadcasting, I was working mostly with fundraising and organizing volunteers. And when I I left there. I had my oldest son, and I went back to graduate school and got an MBA in accounting and computer science.
Mm.
And my MBA project was I was a chef's apprentice at a very famous kitchen here in the pastry kitchen, and I learned how to make all these great pastries because I really wanted to open up a bakery. But then, with a small child and a husband who thought working was optional, that didn't happen. And I went on to, I got an offer to go to work for American Airlines, and I worked for them for 5 years. And I call that my 5 years in hell. I am not a corporate person. So I quit my corporate job and came out. I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but my husband, Patrick's father, and I had two condos at the time, the one I'd had before we got married. And I went in and fixed it up so we could rent it and stuff. And all my neighbors came out and they said, "Oh, you know how to paint? You know how to wallpaper? You know how to do all this stuff?" And I said, "Yeah." And they said, "Well, would you do it for me?" And it was a community of 210 units. And so I kind of immediately had a base to build from. And that grew to become Handy Hands, my construction company. And I did that for almost 20 years. And in the interim, I was a political organizer. I was a mover and shaker in where I lived. And then when we closed Handy Hands, I became the executive director for the American Society of Interior Designers for the state of Texas. And then when I left that job, I went out and did I had a drive-by shooting job. I became the president of a chamber of commerce, but it literally was. I opened up their books. They'd handed me false books when they hired me. Then I opened up their books and saw what they really had. And I thought, I have to find something to do in 6 months because that's as long as I will stay. And I was right. I was out of there at 6 months because they had no money. And I went out and that's when I got drafted by some people to become a political consultant. And that's kind of the last job I had.
Okay.
Before I quit and became a reader.
Yeah. Well,
Oh, I've been a reader. I've been a reader since I was 12. So
yeah.
I don't consider it like a job. I consider it what I do.
It is a job. I mean, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
You have to keep some hours.
Oh yeah.
Well, let me say a shout out to Sharon Sight. Hey, White Dragon. Glad y'all could join us. Hi, Melissa. And anyway, all right. The next question is, let's talk about your metaphysical journey.
Okay.
When did your metaphysical journey begin, and how?
I was never not on it. I came in just knowing stuff, and my mother used to get on me all the time because she said I was lying to people, and they would get to talking to me about some place they'd been, and then I would discuss what the place looked like with them. I remember this one woman, we were talking about a zoo. I don't even know where it was, but we were on vacation in Wisconsin, and she was talking about some zoo, and I started talking to her about it, and apparently the zoo had some very interesting benches that were like with animal shapes or something. Anyway, I got talking to her about it, and I said, "Oh yeah, those are really cool." And anyway, she went up to my mother later and said, "Oh, when did your family go visit the zoo?" And my mother said, "We've never been there." And the woman said, "Well, your daughter certainly has, because she could have drawn me a map. She knew the whole layout." And I was like 6 or 7 years old. And my mom, she got so angry at me, and she called me a little liar, and how dare you do that? And you conned that woman into telling you stuff so you could build off of it. And I said, "No, Mom, I just really saw the zoo." My mom was psychic too, but all she could do, well, it's not an all, but she could see death. She could see when people were going to die, and she would try to help them get ready to do it. What, I don't know what that was.
That's my phone. I'm sorry. I got it on silent.
Anyway, and my mom got really angry with me, and so I learned and to me, there was no difference from my having been there and but anyway, so I can remember back that early. And the woman was really angry with my mother. She said, "If she's never been there, she has special gifts, and you need to treat her that way." So my mom kind of knew. And then I got handed a deck of cards when I was 12. You know, you go to slumber parties, and they'd have like Ouija boards, which I never.
I know. I did all that. Yeah.
and the magic 8 ball.
Oh yeah.
We found out when I did those, they told the truth. When I read the cards, they made sense. And it wasn't really my friends my age that recognized it. It was their teenage sisters who would like, I remember one, and she said, "Oh, what about Jimmy?" And so I laid out the cards, and I said, "Oh, Jimmy has this really nice blonde friend." Now, the girl who was talking to me was a brunette. And apparently, her sister told me later, she said, "Man, my sister gave him what for? And he was out with blonde that night." She goes, "How did you know?"
Yeah.
So, and then when I got to college, I took a free university course in astrology. And it was just the most interesting thing that I remember out of that was the man who was teaching it. He told us, "I won't live to see this, but you will." And he was explaining about the Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions. And he said, "We're in Earth now, but you will live long enough to see Jupiter and Saturn go into air." And the night that happened, a year ago, a little more than a year ago, I walked out and walked to the middle of the golf course and I saw the two of them coming together up in the sky. And I have an understanding of astrology. I can't draw charts. I did do the old ephemeris thing. I actually took a course from a woman named Helen Blue, and I really learned how to draft charts. This is before computers.
Mm-hmm.
But I got more and more into that. Then I worked with a metaphysical healer who did psychodrama to help you deal with traumas in your lives, and that was an interesting point in my life. And
Now,
then,
what were they called? Because I always think of a shaman doing that. What were they called?
well, she thought she was good at what she did, but she used it to manipulate people. That's where I learned about not ever using your power to manipulate. I watched her deteriorate from misusing people. That's why I said it was a mixed bag, but I learned a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started reading cards at psychic fairs in my 30s. And I kept reading. I read people all the time, but I really got into it then. And have just sort of learned all the other skills by reading and being curious. And when you work a psychic fair, everybody in the world and whatever they do is usually at those fairs. And one of the guys who was really an incredible reader, he read the Bible. He had a revision. I mean, not the King James, but one that's more contemporary language. And he'd just tell you to pick a number between one and whatever was the last page in this Bible, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, and he'd read from that quadrant of the page. And he was really, really good. So I learned, whatever people are willing to invest their time to learn, that they can use it.
Well,
And then,
also I wanted to ask you what course made the most impact on you that you've taken.
the only formal courses I've ever really taken was the astrology course I took in my 30s, and the one in Free University, which I didn't pay all that much attention to.
Mm-hmm.
I've gone to workshops with Radley Valentine, who's a tarot writer, but I mean, and they were Angels and Colors, I think was the one I went to, but it was just reinforcing what I had already kind of read and knew. I took Intuitive Views course on being
Yeah,
a
I remember that. Mm-hmm.
and I took it because I always use stuff. I use stones. I use cards. I use different things to read people. And I wanted to see if I could do it without the stuff. And I can, but I'm happier using my stuff. I never studied crystals formally. I just became fascinated with them when I was up in Denver and came back, and I'm self-educated in building crystal grids. And I saw them in October, and the next February I built my own grid just to see if it would work. And it did. And so everything, and I know there are people who teach courses in crystal grid building. I don't understand.
Yeah, well, White Dragon had a question about that that was one of his questions. How did you get started with making grids?
I went, and this was on the same. This was the same year that I dyed my hair purple. I went and visited a friend of mine in Denver to see Radley Valentine, and I was in the shop where he was going to give his lecture, and that's the first grid I saw. And the guy kind of briefly explained to me what it was for, and I thought, well, that's really cool. And I mean, I've seen lots of things, and they didn't make me go nuts. But this one, when I got home, all of a sudden, I got books about crystals. I got to find out how they worked. I read them cover to cover. I started getting really interested in it, and at the same time, I fell into sacred geometry, which is a whole another thing. And so, when I build a grid, it's a combination of the numerology, sacred geometry, and the vibrations of the crystals. And I have a way of putting those together, and they work. So.
Okay. Also, White Dragon, he also does crystal grids that he sells on Etsy. His
Mhm.
if you're here, I think you are a White Dragon. You can go ahead and put your information on how to go to your Etsy website
Mhm.
so people can see what you have. So anyway, just shout out for you, White Dragon. Um,
Mhm.
Also, hi Warrior Girl, hi Wendy. I'm not sure if and I think I got Marge before. Hi everybody. We're
Mhm.
asking questions to Nancy Jean, and let's talk a little bit about your garden and your eggs. Do you want
Okay.
to talk about your eggs? It's been such a thorn in your side.
Oh, I don't want to talk about my eggs today. I really woke up this morning and said, do I want to even keep this up? Because the company that's supposed to have been they're making them. And they told me a week ago they were going to have a bunch of them out to me, and they still have not arrived. And now I'm just talking to my computer because I don't have a phone number for them. Um, so if I can't get this straightened out, I just don't know what I'm going to do. But my thing about the eggs in the garden, they both came in about the same time, and it was February a year ago, and I channeled them in. And I woke up one day and I realized people kept saying to me, I want to work with stones too. But I, and I thought there's got to be a way you could put stones in some kind of a structure. And there are people who would cast stones before, but they don't have any, there's no real form to it. And so that day, I had a vision of the garden and wrote out all the words that were going to be part of the garden. And then I handed them off to my artist friend, Alma, who designed what is physically the scarf that is the garden. All those words are on it. So then, and I knew which stones I wanted to put on. I channeled that in. So um, the garden had a couple of prototypes. We were originally going to do it in black and white, and then we did it in uh, the beautiful fluorite colors because Alma had designed a scarf for me in the fluorite colors. And I said, I want these colors and this texture together. And there's a whole lot to building these things. And then one day I realized I was going to have to send these out to people. And, I could kind of intuit what the places were. But then I said, okay, what's going on? And I started having visions every night. And I just ended up setting up my phone so I could record into it after I had the visions. And I had a vision of what's going on, and it's I have it in a book now, and it's I mean, if you get the garden, I will send you this information. But it was my vision about what each of the spaces was like, and then when stones fell in it, how you would interpret them there. And then I made a quick sheet, like a little cheat sheet, where gives you that in a few sentences. And I realize it's more intuitive than reading cards. But if you do it enough, oh, by the way, the night that I finished the cheat sheet, I came up with the matrix. I did it all in one day, in one afternoon. And when I stood up to get away from the computer, I fell over. It freaked my kids out. They thought I was having a stroke or something. I was just so exhausted from channeling all that in. Um, and
Yeah, I
so
don't think some people realize how tiring channeling can be sometimes.
Yeah, and I got the philosophy. I have absolutely the thing about the garden is you can't do a yes no on it. It puts you into a situation, and that's really the way I would rather read. I won't read anything as a yes no. I read that what's the vibration around it,
Mhm.
and the garden. That's how the garden works. And I've taught classes in it, and I'm going to be teaching classes in it again. But I just and how the eggs work. The eggs work is that has I only have 2 of them that are physically made. This is the throat chakra, and it comes with a wand, and I have an allowance prayer, and you match your energy into the energy of the crystals that are in the egg, and it's there to support you and help you. And it was originally the first one I designed was for the heart to help a friend of mine who had heart problems, and it worked. So that's when I saw the rest of the eggs. I'll get there with the eggs. Today's not a good day.
I know you've struggled so much with it, and none of it under your control was the problem. I mean, that's what frustrates you the most.
See, I can build grids all day long. I built one point last year. I built 90 grids in about 90 days, and I can build grids all day long because I can get the stones to do it.
Right.
It's having to rely on someone else to produce something that makes me nuts.
Well, hopefully one day, because we're all waiting for those eggs. So,
Mhm.
well, next is there anything else you want to tell us about you that we don't know about that would surprise us?
I love to do stuff with my hands, and I always have. But I'm really, despite what it looks like if you watch my shows, I'm actually halfway decent with computers. I just don't have the computer in our house that has all of the editing material. Um, and I'm not sure I would want to go back to editing and doing all that because I did that. I mean, I edited on real film, celluloid film, and had to put soundtracks with it and all that. I've done that. Um, uh, I'm a real good cook, and I managed to cook myself up to over 300 pounds. So then I became a real good dieter.
Keto.
I do keto, and it's really a lifestyle change. And I cannot tell you what a difference it makes. I just had my physical, and besides the doctor saying my lungs had gotten clear of pneumonia, which I had years ago, and they kept saying, well, you're going to have this for life, and I had to keep an inhaler, and I had all the asthma, adult asthma from that. This physical, I went in, it's gone. And she said my A1C is just absolutely perfect. I'm still a bit of a chunky monkey, but I don't have any of the kind of disease borne things from being slightly overweight. So,
Well, that's good to hear.
yeah.
Keto is not my type of diet for sure. I like the carbs, but I am vegetarian. That's about as far as I get.
Yeah, well, you're vegan. I mean, I eat meat.
I'm not vegan. I can't do the vegan. I'm vegetarian. The vegan is just a little too strict for me because
Mm-hmm.
it's a little. Anyway, but I have had to give up a lot of stuff for a while. My my sugar, my chocolate, my coffee. Uh,
See, I still do coffee. I don't do sugar, obviously. I
yeah,
don't.
well, it's just for a while for me that I'm not supposed to. And this upgrades that are coming to me, they're just saying it'll be easier on my body if I'm not ingesting those things right now. And it's only good for me, but it's not permanent because I want my coffee. I
Oh,
want
I just I tell the masters if you start cutting off too much of my food, you're doomed. I'm not going to do another thing. I'm not channeling another thing.
I tell you though, whenever they do want me to do something, it is so worth it. I mean, the first time I had to go on a special diet was when I had to go on a bland diet, and that's when I got to fly my first spaceship or go on the first spaceship. I didn't fly it; I just got to go
Mm-hmm.
on. And then, and I was so glad I did because also I nauseated for like 3 days afterwards, and then the very next day they came and took me, and I got to walk around the spaceship out in the atmosphere, and
Oh, cool.
so much fun. And then, again, I had to change my diet for going on the big spaceship. So there, it's always been for good. So now I'm waiting. I'm expecting, what's going to happen now? When they
Yeah.
put me on something special, I'm waiting to see what that big event's going to be because that was humongous when I got to go on my first spaceship. So
I've got, I got a question in the room.
okay.
It says, "Do I meditate, or is channeling just comes naturally?" Um, Meditation makes a great deal of difference, but quite honestly, in my earlier years when I was a single mom and dating and doing a lot of other stuff and reading cards, um, I never stopped long enough to meditate. Now, probably would have, my life might have flowed a little more easily because there are some sketchy parts of that life. But um, do I meditate? I just try to wake up with the best possible attitude. And I have gone through an enormous shift, which I'm still working out in my own head about how my energetics have changed. And now that I'm working with earth energies and ley lines and all that stuff, um, I spend a lot of time researching things. I'll hear about something and I don't let it just sit there and fester. I go look at it and research it and try to talk to the people who know about it. And it's all energy at the end of the day. We are all just energy. And when I finally got to the point where I could see myself just as an energetic being, I that's when I think I just relaxed back. And for the first time, I think the thing that frightened me the most from when I was little was being alone. I always thought we were alone. I thought, I was isolated and I feared being alone. And I'm I realized in the last few months that we're never alone, and that as long as we hold our light in good space, that we fall into a cloud of things that are full of good and supportive things. And so I just kind of relaxed back into that paradigm. And that's what I'm wrestling with right now is how to
Because
explain it.
you're totally opposite on that. You want to be around people, and I'm like, I don't.
Oh, I know. And most readers don't. I
Being
mean,
alone.
that's what's so weird is because I do, but I don't like crowds. I like to be around the people I like to be around. I don't think I'll ever do crowds again. The last big crowd I was in, I went to Washington, D.C. to see when Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert did their, uh, vote for fear, vote for freedom rally, big thing they had. It was on the mall. And I think when we read about it afterwards, over 100,000 people were there.
Wow.
And we went really early because my knees were not fixed yet. And so we got in there and we got a park bench. And then all the people moved in around us. And then when they realized that I couldn't stand, they were like really sweet. And I wanted to see how big the crowd was. And these college students, these guys, picked me up and held me. And this was before I lost weight, guys. These were burly guys. They picked me up and I could see the entire mall,
Wow.
just all the whole thing filled with people. And we were up towards the front. And at the very end, I started to feel really, really lightheaded and really out of it. And so my daughter went and muscled her way through the crowd and went to the hospital tent. They came out and I got an ambulance right out of there. They took me to the cardiac ward. They thought I was having a heart attack. And I wasn't. I just realized now I can never be in that much energy again.
Yeah. Well, we do have a question from Valerie who posted earlier. And the message is, do I have a message from a starseed family? And I didn't know if maybe I can look at that, or maybe if you want to pull a card to see what message.
Yeah, sure. I can pull a card for her.
Valerie, I'm not sure if you're here. I think I saw you earlier.
Yeah, she was one of the first ones in. So I think she's just hanging out there. Yeah, I pulled. What are you going to say, Dr. Gill?
Well, I was going to say there's something she's supposed to be doing metaphysically. What is she?
Balance. She's this lifetime. You're to learn balance.
Okay. But,
And I think this lifetime you've been handed more than a few things to make you have to do it. But it's really that's the two of coins, and then in my deck he's not on a ship. He's not getting any of that.
a little bit of confusion.
Yeah, but you see on top of him he has infinity, and this has been your lifelong goal. You're here to help find balance for yourself and bring balance to others.
So also I'm feeling like, Valerie, if you're not already doing something or out there sharing your gifts, I think they're wanting you to hone into one thing. I feel like you're scattered.
Mm-hmm.
You're all over the place. So put your energy, start off with one thing instead of, maybe you're taking a lot of classes. I'm not sure what you're doing. If you're there, Valerie,
She's making lunch right now.
Well, good for you, Valerie. I hope it's something healthy. So anyway, if you are being asked to go into something that you're passionate about, but I feel like your energy's scattered and you're needing to hone into something that's more specific. And you can start off with one thing and build on it, but it feels like you're just scattered. So anyway, I hope that helps. Let's see. It looks like White Dragon. Did I miss a question? Can you?
He says, have I ever been on a ship? You mean like Dr. Gail's ships? No.
She won't go. She won't go.
I don't need a ship, first of all. And I really just don't need that in my life. Thank you. I truly suffer from very bad motion sickness. And when she talks about going up in those ships, my whole stomach goes,
Keep saying, you can have all that. You can have all that. Now, he is going up in spaceships for sure.
Yeah.
And he's got a very interesting life, and I'm always excited to hear what his new adventure is. We're not doing the same thing, but we are very connected to the ET.
Valerie's trying to figure out recommendations. I think if you're looking for balance and you're looking, I tell you what, the key that opened up the universe kind of for me was sacred geometry. And there's a couple of really good YouTube shows that show the linkage from the dot to the line to how all the things built. And if you get that and then you start looking at them, and I see the linkage to that and the crystalline structures of some of the stones I use and things like that, eventually you will see how we're all related, and that will give you a good sense of balance, and that how we're all interconnected.
So you're thinking that she should be going into the sacred geometry?
Yeah. Let's see.
I'm getting that she should be taking classes to figure out what she likes. Take different classes.
Yeah, and see where your skill sets fit.
Yeah.
Here's okay. I'm going to show you.
Don't take a bunch of different ones all the time. Take one at a time. Build on it.
Yeah, don't, because you get confused.
You're having trouble pulling it together.
This is an excellent book on sacred geometry, and I got it off Amazon. And the woman's name is Marilyn Walker, PhD, and it's a sacred geometry reference, but it's not just sacred geometry forms. It shows how it's gone through history, all the different things. And I read that book cover to cover when I got it, because it really linked a lot of basics of how all of it links together and works.
Well, yeah, the sacred geometry cards that you have and I have also are great for kind of flashcard orientation. So you might want to get some of those. What are they called?
They're called Activation Sacred Geometry and Relationship, and this is one of them.
Yeah, and it's Ursula that does sacred geometry art, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah, she has beautiful art, so you might want to check out her channel. And look at her.
That's Ascension Playground.
The Ascension Playground. That's right. So anyway, here's the next question. Sun Intuition. I am right on the cusp and trying to push myself into what I am supposed to be doing. Do you have some insight for me? Thanks, ladies. Okay. Hey, Sunny. Hi. Well, I'm kind of getting medium for you. Have you been doing any kind of mediumship work? Have you been taking any of the classes or done any kind of getting together with people trying to do mediumship?
Let me see. She didn't give us a response. I'm not getting mediumship for her. I think what I'm seeing is she's a things person.
Well, things like cards and mediumship through cards.
Yeah, boy, are you ready to move? You got you got 3 10s and a 5 card draw out of a 70 something. That means you're ready to be finished with your own life. Yours is a matter of working with spirit, and it is things. It is things. And I think you tried at one point in your life to go out and learn some of this, and you just got misdirected and it didn't work out the way you wanted. So you just need to, I'd say you could work with the easiest way to start. If you've seen people, that's great. Um, the easiest way to start is with the pendulum because it's real simple. And if you contact me at my email,
They're trying to get your website up for me because I didn't do that.
okay,
They're trying to get your contact information up for me.
okay.
So yeah, but I was seeing her as a medium, as in using cards for a medium. Like
Oh,
that's
okay, okay.
her
Because
using cards.
yeah, if you want, I have this. This is a pendulum chart, and it's sort of like everything you ever needed to know about a pendulum on one chart. And then this has your personal frequencies. And I find that this is very helpful in following my personal frequencies. And I can, once you become aware of when your frequencies are up and when they're starting to slide, you can control it better. But um,
But it is I agree. Pendulum is the easiest way to start.
yes. And I have
So
another question.
I hope that helps, Susie. Giving you some direction on what to do,
Hmm.
where to go, and people to watch. And also
Hmm.
take classes to help with all that and just experience it all.
Somebody asked about ley lines.
Uh,
Um, the Melissa V.
okay.
Okay. Uh, how do ley lines work? Okay, I'm going to tell you, I'm in the process, and it's taken us 2 months to get our whole stuff together. I did a show with a guy named Johann von Wick. If you go to my website, you can find it. Um, and he actually repairs them. He works with the archangels and repairs them. I'm going to be doing a show soon with David Johnson and some other mediums and Johan. We're going to be in Australia, South Africa, and the US in one show.
I
This
know
show's going to be nuts.
it's so hard to do just one different country, much less two.
And if you come and see that, we'll go more into how they work. To explain ley lines is like a whole lot. It's what it is it's earth energies that surround us, and they can have a definite a good and bad effect on us. And I'm going to leave it at that. But the other person you can look up is a man named Rory Duff, Duff, and he just did a whole hour-long thing with Pam Gregory, the astrologer, this week. It just came out this week, and he's the most well-known of all the people working with ley lines in the world. It's fascinating, and you can find him by dowsing and some other things. I'm working on all that, but
Here's White Dragon making a comment about the ley lines.
mm-hmm.
I'm close to coastal Coral Castle in South Florida. There are some important line crossings there. What can you expand on?
I don't know.
That would be more of what's his name? That the guy that we brought.
Johann von Wick or Rory Duff.
Yeah, they can answer those kind of questions because that's what they're
Mm-hmm.
is the ley lines. Um, so yeah. Have I missed any?
I wish I had a quick, clean answer. I can talk about tarot. I can talk about pendulums, all those things. I have relatively quick, clean answers. I started working on ley lines a year and a half ago, and it's taken me this long for me to be able to assimilate it enough so that when I'm looking at the stuff, I can follow it.
Well, I think what's amazing about your channel is you bring in so many different people that you're not doing yourself. In fact, you brought me in, and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't do ETs. I don't get in
I
spaceships. I
know.
don't deal with that world. I'm on Earth. I'm Earth, 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 Earth. But we'd love to hear your story.
Mm-hmm.
And so she does that with a lot of people, and that is part of the ley line. So when she brought him in, we're all sitting there going, okay, yeah, this is interesting. So,
Well, we're in a bit of a timeline with the ley lines because um, we're the Earth is absorbing right now a whole lot of subatomic particles, and the theory they're working from, and he's working with physicists about this, is that they're going through the center, the hard core of the center of the Earth, and they're changing the vibrations. That's why the Schumann resonance has changed on our planet. And we need to get our act together because by 2024, at the end of the year, it's going to build up enough energy in the middle of our planet that it's going to kind of be like a bell that gets rung and it's going to go wah 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 wah, and all the ley lines need to be fixed. That's the theory they're working with.
Sue Toffee. I don't think I've ever seen you. Thank you for listening. Do you know her, Nancy?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. Morning. What is my morning, lovelies? Thank you. What is my spiritual gift? Tarot cards, writing, photo orbs.
Well, I think you kind of dabble in all those things. You can try it and just see which one do you feel most comfortable with. I can tell you flat out, I could read cards 24 hours a day, and it's no stretch for me at all. I'm getting to the point where I can read the garden with relative proficiency most of the time, and I love working with crystals, but I can't read cards and build grids on the same day. It's two different flows of energy for me, and you just have to learn how to manage yourself.
Also, I'd like for her to expand more on the writing part. That's what I'm getting.
I think that she. Are you talking about automatic writing, Sue?
Because that's what I'm really focused on. That's what I see writing.
This next Tuesday, I'm going to do a show on how to do automatic writing.
Oh, good, good.
People have asked about it.
So, is that what you're talking about? Automatic writing, or are you doing what? What kind of writing are you doing? Because that's what my eyes are going straight to is writing.
I'm not going to answer. Anyway, if it's not automatic writing and you're just writing your experiences, I sat through a show. It showed up, things pop up on my YouTube, and it's a guy named Seth. Yes, automatic writing. Okay. His name is Seth, and I don't even remember. I saved the show. Maybe I'll post it somewhere. But this guy, he has he believes in everybody should just put your work out there and don't worry about it. Just be generous with yourself. Put your work out there. I just loved his attitude because that's kind of what I do. But that, and then it'll find its way back. But he runs an association called Akimbo, AKIMBO. And as far as I can tell, you can join them and see what they're up to for free. But this guy, Seth, came up with this idea, and he's published a couple thousand different books, come up with an idea and sold it. And this whole thing was about how he did that. And he was talking about how each and every one of us just needs to get up and do what we're going to do. So, I have found I've taken a writing workshop through De Leon where you have to write something every day and you have to go back and reflect on your life. And it was real interesting when I started doing that. And I wrote every day. It makes a difference. And so.
Well, when I do my readings and everything, I write. I'm always writing, continually writing, writing information. I'm always writing. And I always have to stop and go, oh, I forgot to tell you, I do writing the whole time because people wonder why you're looking down writing. In fact, here I'm writing stuff down.
Well, I call them scribblers. Intuitive views like that. Well, they do. If you look at her pad, it makes no sense.
Oh,
but,
yeah. Mine does. I'm writing words down. I do write words down. Okay. So mine does sort of make sense.
So,
I have missed a question up here, and I'm trying to find it.
Okay.
And it's Susie. And she flagged me at winter where I have missed it, but I'm not seeing it. But challenge. Can you rewrite that, Susie? Because I'm not seeing it right now. Okay, let's see. White Dragon, the guy that built Coral Castle, I found out through a site. Okay. I found out through a psychic experiment that he was to fix those ley lines. The location was moved. They moved also. His job was mainly to fix that. Well, that's what the guy that you talked to, I can't say his name.
Johan does.
He's going around the world and fixing ley lines, and that's what he's all about. And he's trying to help them.
Rory Duff, his crew fixes ley lines, and he has some interesting stories about how they have to have at least 6 people to fix one the way he works it, and that each of them has a different skill. And one guy can attach the ley line to his solar plexus and move it. I don't know why. I do know why you want to move ley lines. Sometimes they're not in the right place. Then what Johan's doing is actually fixing them where they've become broken, because when the ley lines were laid out, it was on Pangea, when we were one big continent. And as we've shifted and moved apart, it's caused breakage and discontinuation and discord in the lines.
I'm seeing the comment here about Sharon. I think you're asking about being a moderator. Yeah, I am on StreamYard right now, and I'd love to make you a moderator. And I think I have to be on YouTube to be able to do that. So, yeah, thank you. But yeah, one day when I'm back on YouTube and when I'm doing by myself, I'll go on YouTube and we'll get you as a moderator then. So, thanks. I'd love to have you as a moderator. You're a great moderator. Okay, let's see. Okay. Can you tell us any connections or experiences you have had with ETs? Are you talking about me, Susie? Or are you talking about Nancy? Yeah, let's talk about Nancy. What's your experiences with the ETs?
I disappeared for 2 hours, for 3 hours. Dr. Gail thinks this is hysterical. I got up to go do my middle of the night visit to the bathroom that little old ladies do. And I always check my watch to see what time I get up. And then the next thing I knew, I was looking at my watch and I was sitting back on my bed, and 3 hours had disappeared. And I knew I had been awake during that time. So I talked to Dr. Gail about what happened I talked to Dr. Gail and another medium I know that works with this. And they all said, well, yeah, you disappeared. And then Dr. Gail came back later and told me what had happened. And it's because when I channel from the Ascended Masters. And I was so pissed at them because they made me sick working the gardens, developing the garden and the eggs, that I told them I needed a vacation. And I really did. I had I had developed a heart arrhythmia and I had to do something to keep it under control. So I was told by another person who deals with all kinds of stuff, Akashic records and different stuff like that, that I could just make a bargain with them. So they were supposed to leave me alone, and I said, I don't want them to bother me. I need to get my body back in shape. And I was all of a sudden sleeping peacefully at night and having a wonderful time. And then all of a sudden, in the midst of all that, I lost 3 hours. So Dr. Gail went and found out, and I don't remember any of this. In the theories, what I've been told, Dr. Gail saw it. Anyway, I got taken back to the Ascended Masters because they really had something they had to tell me, and they had promised they wouldn't come get me, so they sent an ET to come get me.
Well, what my position was I was sitting up in the stadium of all ETs and Ascended Masters. There's all of us up there, and she comes walking in, and she is cussing under her breath. all the way in down the hall, and everybody was kind of holding their breath because they knew she was mad and wondering what she was going to say and what she was going to do. And then she looked up at me, which I was sitting up in the audience, and she just smirked and just kept on coming. She was so mad. She was so mad that they had brought her up there, and it was funny. They didn't think it was funny. I thought it was very funny. So,
No, I've been told by someone who works with a lot of that stuff that they wanted me to stay there with them, that they wanted my energy to stay there, but that I'm addicted to humanity. That's what they put it. I'm addicted to humanity, and I keep coming back to work with people, and I really like people. And so I don't know. I used to just be a little sweet little old lady who read cards. What can I say?
well, the thing is when way I saw you, if they're used to it, I have a feeling you've been many lifetimes going in like that and telling them off.
Yeah, I had a medium. You know, there's some mediums that can look back and they can see when you're planning your life plan, when you're setting up your horoscopes for this life. And she looked at me and she goes, "You're sitting in front of a room full of people. It's not like this. Usually she sees certain people at a table, certain spirit animals at a table and stuff, helping you figure out what's the best plan for yourself." And she said, "You're not sitting at a table." She said, "You're like in a long red robe and you're at the front." And she said, "And there's this whole group of people and they're all trying to talk to you." And she said, "You're not paying them much mind." And she goes, "Oh my God, I think those are the masters." And I said, "Yeah, I've been told this before." Um, she was sort of like, "You're so flippant about it." And I'm not, I respect much of what they've done for all of us. I just don't like being kidnapped.
You weren't kidnapped. You were supposed to be at the meeting.
Yeah, and I didn't want to go. So,
You didn't want to go, but it was an important meeting. Okay, well, let's come over here to Zeta, and
mhm.
she would like to know what her spiritual guide gifts should, what spiritual guide should she be doing? So you'll pull some cards on that, see what gifts she is.
Yeah.
Zeta, I'm surprised you're not dealing with your gifts because you are so gifted. Um, you really are. And I'm surprised you haven't discovered what your gift is yet.
Let me see what I can find. You can do anything. I've been able to learn to do all these different things. I dabble in feng shui. I'm going to talk about the golden mountain of abundance to put the stones, this 8 stones outside your front door. About to do some more stuff on all those things. You can learn them all.
Where are you going to do the candles again?
Oh, that's certain.
Or is that a sore subject too?
Yeah, actually, last time I did the candles, I left the room and left them burning on the table, and one of them exploded, and it burnt my desk. And my daughter was we sensed it the second it happened. The smoke started building, and she's a smoker, and she smelled the smoke.
Yeah, I remember talking to. I think it was the next day when that happened. It was the last day. It did happen on the last day.
Yeah, it happened on the last day because they were burning out, and so my kids have said I can only do 9 candles if I do the kind that you turn on that are like little tea lights.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, really, they live in this house too. They do not want to watch you go down.
Oh, they don't want you to do the candles again?
No, I can do what I want. I mean, it's going to be a while though before.
Well, the next time, get a regular plate. Not what was it that you were using? A plastic.
I'm going to get what I'm going to get is I'm going to get a big glass tray that they're on and have all make sure. What happened is I think it was that they sold them to me as they felt like they were glass, but they weren't. When we watched what the fire did, they were.
Mhm.
Anyway, and trust me, my son wrote a long letter to Amazon about that. Okay, Zeta's going, what am I supposed to do? And I don't give a damn
I
about it.
get her all over the place, but she has so many gifts. She has the ability to do anything she wants.
What is the one that you feel most at home with? This is the card I got. Is the 4 of Wands, the feeling at home with it.
Yeah.
I do see you can tend to get scattered, but you have one skill that you just feel incredibly comfortable with. Work with that for a while until you get really confident with that. Unless you're just like me and you get bored. And
Yeah,
you just,
you know what that skill is. What is that skill? What are you good with?
are you asking her?
I'm asking her. She knows what it is. She said, "Oh,
Which
still
is
not
the
sure."
one you did first? As long as it wasn't a Ouija board. Which is the one you did first? Because I think that's the one that you need to get grounded to. And I think what happens to you, Zeta, this is what I'm picking up, is you start to get really, really good at something, at dealing with that, and it frightens you. It's power you don't want.
She
And
has power. She has a lot of power.
you need to assume your power and not be afraid of it. You know, fear is just false evidence appearing real.
Okay, and this is our last one. We're right at an hour. We'll just do this one. And it's Judith A. What is my gift?
Okay. I'll pull from a different deck.
I'm not getting anything on this one. I've got a wall. A wall's coming up to me.
Yeah, that's not, I don't have I'm going to pull a flower and it's going to tell me from my language of flowers cards.
Judith, I'm sorry. I'm getting a wall for you, and I don't know why.
Okay. I got belladonna, which doesn't mean go around killing people. It means listen more and be quiet. So I think one of the things you need to be doing is you need to be meditating on it, and it will just appear to you like a picture, what you're supposed to do. And if you have several different things you do, then the one that comes through the most clear will be that will help you. But you have to tune into your own body, your own self, and your own gifts. And I hope you do. And if you haven't tried meditation, start there, because that's when we get quiet and get inside ourselves, and the parts inside ourselves we haven't been able to listen to can come forward.
Okay. Well, that was our last question, because usually my guides just shut me down in an hour. So I'm not sure if they're shutting me down, or actually if it's you, Judith, they're shutting me down, not being able to see what's going on. So,
well, I need to go because I have another show to do today with Jeffrey from Mexico, because we were doing our daily readings and somehow or another I screwed the tape up. So
yeah, you didn't have one this morning, did you? Was it?
We did. Last night was our last one, and he and I are going live tonight at 7:00 on both our channels, and we're going to do one, and then before that, we're going to tape the other days. We tape them in 2-week segments, and we have to do it tonight because he's moving again. He's moving to a different place in Mexico City. That boy doesn't stay.
This is a third place, isn't he moving to?
Oh, he started in one town, then he went to Puebla, then he went into Mexico City, and then he didn't like that place at all, and I could understand why. And then he went to the place he likes right now, but he likes it a whole lot, but it's an Airbnb, and they have other people coming in on top of him, so he's got to move.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody for joining us, and thanks Nancy Jean for being here. I'm glad y'all showed up, and we will see you later. Bye-bye.
Okay.